The SenzoMeyiwa murder trial has adjourned until Monday after spending the week hearing the testimony of lead investigator Brigadier Bongani Gininda. Let's check in with Newzroom Afrika's Linda Mnisi, who's been keeping an eye on these developments. He's in studio with us this afternoon. It's always good to have you keep us company, Linda. Thanks for coming in. So there's been a lot of back and forth, particularly today, I think, around the links between accused number 5 and SenzoMeyiwa's then girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo.
Yes, and this argument, Michelle, you'd recall, started before, in fact, after Colonel Steyn revealed the connection between the alleged calls, right, between Kelly Khumalo and accused number 5. And initially, they indicated, meaning the state, indicated that the Vodacom expert would come and clarify what was meant by these calls. When the Vodacom expert came, she said they did not record or in their set of data, these calls did not appear as actual calls. What they have on their set of data is internet activity, internet data. That prompted the recalling of Colonel Steyn. You'd recall the state recalled Colonel Steyn, who then said the calls were made via internet data, which means they would not have appeared, according to Steyn, they would not have appeared in Vodacom's set of data because it records like the normal calls.
So essentially, right? A WhatsApp call? Essentially
a WhatsApp call. And you'd recall Advocate Mshololo saying in 2014 there was no WhatsApp call, which is what they believe as the defense was a fabrication to make it look like Kelly Khumalo had contact with accused number 5. So Brigadier Bongani Gininda started yesterday in relation to these calls with explaining how this information came about. In 2014, after SenzoMeyiwa was shot and killed, the phones of the people that were inside the house, including Kelly Khumalo's phone, were seized by the police. Downloads were then done. And then a couple of years later, Brigadier Bongani Gininda takes over the matter, and his unit, they take over the matter. And what they had at the time when they took these set of data to Colonel Steyn was just the names of the accused as well as the numbers of the people that were inside the house. And according to Brigadier Gininda, the link was then made by Colonel Steyn. So essentially what he's explaining today is that these were cell phone records or calls that were made via internet data, essentially a WhatsApp call that link accused number 5 with Kelly Khumalo. And it's all in explaining the link between the people or the accused with the alleged mastermind being Kelly Khumalo.
But I mean, Linda, even though we didn't have WhatsApp calls in 2014, there were other ways of making calls using internet data, surely. I mean, there are other platforms that you can use. I'm not an expert, so I don't know how far back the technology goes, but it's not just WhatsApp that you could use, that you can use now to do an internet call, for example.
Yes, and you know, you listen to what you know, the initial conversation was around perhaps BBM,
right,
but also
right,
then WhatsApp calls. And I recall the judge asking Pinky Weithlingam from Vodacom to say, can you confirm them as a call? And she said, from my set of data, I cannot confirm it as a call because it does not appear as such. But, and then the judge went further to say, but can you confirm that there was connectivity between two numbers?
Right.
And Pinky Weithlingam said, yes, there is a connectivity via the internet.
And that connectivity cannot happen unless I'm in contact with you.
Well, that's something that the state is going to be arguing at a later stage, I suppose, because their line of, you know, giving the evidence has been the link between the accused and, you know, the people in the house, particularly when they focus at Kelly Khumalo. It's not only those calls, but they're saying that she's also linked with accused number 3 in the form of cell phones. And they're saying that there's a picture of on accused number 3's phone, which is a bag of money, a see-through plastic bag placed at a particular location. It's saved as Igugulo Mhlaba, which is the treasures of this world, essentially, on accused number 3's phone. That very same picture, Brigadier Bongani Gininda says, was recovered from Kelly Khumalo's phone. And for the first time, we're hearing that the very same picture was also discovered on Longwe Twala's phone. So the Brigadier Gininda essentially trying to connect the dots and corroborate the evidence that he says they picked up. But of course, this will be subject to a challenge because we know for a fact that accused number 5 says he never communicated with Kelly Khumalo. He does not deny the number in question. He says the number is his, but has never communicated with singer Kelly Khumalo, and relying also on the element of whether this was a WhatsApp call or it was a straightforward call. According to him and his lawyer, the actual call does not exist, and they're relying on what the Vodacom expert, Pinky Vaitelingam, said, that she cannot confirm it as a call. So I suppose at a later stage, then this will be a matter of arguments to say, how do both parties, the state and the defense, persuade the court into believing that there was or was not calls between the two.
Very interesting indeed. I suppose this is why we became journalists, because we just look at the facts before us, not just about the arguments.
Yes, and Michelle, you look at also how he linked the accused. I mean, the investigations, his testimony sort of gives insight into the investigations that went into this particular case from 2018 when they got the docket, how they established or how he came to determine that there were in fact intruders. A big point that is, at the center of this case, were there intruders or no intruders? Yeah. And he said he looked at a couple of factors and he came to the conclusion that indeed there were intruders. And one of those factors was the phone that allegedly belonged to Kelly Khumalo that was stolen on that night. He says it went to a particular direction, a different direction, when all the occupants of the house were at the hospital. So that means somebody must have come into the house and taken that cell phone going into a different direction. The issues around confession statements, how he corroborated those confession statements, accused number 1 and 2. He says initially he thought that there were just 2 intruders in the house based on the statements of the people who were in the house. But when he looked at the confession statement of accused number 1, it mentioned that he was standing outside. And that to him, he says, did not make sense. But it was only when accused number 2 deposed his statement, giving more names, that they decided, he then came to the conclusion that there were more people inside the house, because accused number 2's confession statement says accused number 1 was standing outside, and that for him was a corroboration.
I think we'll forgive our viewers if their heads are spinning from accused 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He said, yeah. You've been telling us for months, Linda, and you did an incredible wrap of for the anniversary of the 10-year anniversary of SenzoMeyiwa's murder this past Saturday. And you've been telling us that the lead investigator's testimony in this trial would be a turning point for the state, and that it would be a turning point in the case. Do you still see that happening, and that we're getting somewhere once the cross-examination of the lead investigation is completed?
Yeah, Michelle, I mean, it's an important piece of evidence, because then the judge gets to look into how certain pieces of evidence were collected, right? Like I said, the confession statements, there's a big debate. There was a big debate during the trial, within a trial, on how those confession statements are obtained. The defense is arguing that they were obtained unlawfully. They were coerced into making those confession statements. So this particular testimony puts that into perspective, right? Whether or not they were obtained lawfully, and what level of involvement was, how involved was Brigadier Bongani Gininda in obtaining those particular confession statements. The issue of cell phone records, the credibility of these pieces of evidence, all of it coming together, but most importantly also the work that was done by Colonel Steyn, the cell phone data analyst, the DNA evidence, and how it was obtained will ultimately be a turning point for the credibility of the state and what it's trying to prove here. So once cross-examination is done, then we can expect that something from the defense, be it an application for a discharge, or if they're going to call their witnesses, and we know who they're already have their eyes on when it comes to their witnesses.
I think we all do. Linda Mnisi, thanks very much for coming into studio.